Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Saturday. Getting started a little bit late because lots of things going on. We had the power going kind of on and off for a little while, which was a little bit annoying when you're trying to like cook food and you can't run an electric appliance to do that. It's okay. I ate a turkey sandwich. It's all good. We had a cat we couldn't find. Got a cat that's sick. So, anyway, sorry for starting a little bit late, but we'll get to it. We are going to continue our little journey here on this young adult kind of thing we've been doing. There we go. Let's go ahead and see if we can pull it up here. Get to it, huh? It's actually a track I recorded last night, but I haven't published it yet. Some people who are into the more ambient stuff, they're into the Zool stuff, they're like, why isn't this on Spotify? A lot of it is. I hadn't thought about putting every single track on Spotify. I don't know if that's like a thing that people would actually want. Like if they, I can obviously just put the live recording on YouTube, but I could just rip the audio and put it out as an MP4 or whatever on, or MP3 on, well, it's recorded in MP4, so it's actually a different compression, but I can just rip the audio and put that on Spotify, or record it and rip it out of Ableton, which is what I used to perform most of it, so, yeah. This one was like more intentionally, not as many solos. A lot of times I just like to do a lot of improvisation solos. I was like, I'm going to intentionally go really slow. I want to make it more like the ambient kind of blue rather than ambient John Coltrane or something. It's not as notey. There's like one notey passage in it somewhere. I gotta figure out how to make shorter songs. When I just start like going and kind of see where things go, everything ends up at 17 minutes plus. And I did that one rain piece that was an hour long. That was intentional. But the other ones being like close to 20 minutes, I'm afraid that's like too long. It's good for like background music, but I don't know. I gotta figure out how to make shorter stuff. Alright, this is it. Alright, here we go. Zoom it up a bit so people at home can read it. That looks pretty good. Alright. Should be on chapter 7. Let's turn off all the paragraph stuff. Display. I could tell I was formatting the new book because I need to know where all the little paragraph enters are. Alright, we did this. We can delete that. Okay. Let's see what we want to do. So we need to, now they need to go on their journey. I'll pull up the planning document if I can find it. And let's see where it is. Give me a second. I'll pull up the planning document here in just a second. Here's the planning document. You can kind of see what we wrote. This is their first adventure that we just kind of came up with. We can edit that, make it a little better. I was wondering how someone can effectively argue about the authenticity of a fantasy world. I think the BMW with heated seating being works to prove the point, the value of authenticity. Well, it's mostly about like having consistency that's internal. That it's working with itself. And the other thing is that, like, if you're just pulling things out of your hat to solve a problem, like, oh yeah, people are aware of that something comes out of nowhere, and it's like a people use this too often, but Deus Ex Machina, the god of the machine. This was like just something coming out of nowhere. It's a non sequitur. Something kind of just comes out of nowhere to solve the problem. It's as bad as, like, you come into a problem and the Mary Sue character's like, well, luckily I was the best C++ programmer in Starfleet Academy, and I just happened to study this ancient computer language so I could solve this plot problem right now, right? So, like, coming up with magic and stuff that pulls that stuff out, that's not super consistent. All right. So we actually need a slight interlude before this first adventure. And the reason is because Alfred is a noble character, and he's not going to take a woman with him on a journey. Right? He's not going to take a girl with him. So we have to have a reason for her to come along. And that reason is ultimately going to be that she can't go home. And there's a couple ways that we could do that. So, in fact, why don't we pull up the planning document? We'll make some notes here. Okay. So, we'll have a transition from basically from the exposition into the first adventure here. And that's what I'm going to call it. Transition 1 here. Okay. So, actually I have transition 1 B story, be transition 2, which is also going to be B story. This is just like a slight transition. So basically what we need is to have, Victoria can't go home, and we have to solve the reason because blank, right? So there's a couple things that we can do. You could have her go home and, like, have her family be dead. Now, this is a really brutal one to do, but you could do it, right? If you wanted to. This is the Luke Skywalker thing, right? Why can't Luke Skywalker stay with Uncle Owen? Well, because the Empire murdered them. So now he has extra reason to pursue this, okay? So this is a really easy solution, but it's a very, very grim one. And I remember, like, with Star Wars, how dark it was that Luke basically, we had to get rid of Luke wanted to leave, but we had to get rid of any good reason he would have to stay. In other words, to take care of his aunt and uncle. Those are good reasons. We have to get rid of those to get him off the planet. So it's the same thing. Alfred has to not have a good reason to, he has to basically not appeal to his normal reasons to not take a woman along on an adventure because it's actually unbecoming to her. Right? And because we discovered her at her house, we have to have a reason for her not to go back. So, yeah, we could have her family get killed. What I think might be better is if we find out that her father is, like, in league with Edward, right? So he's kind of a bad guy, and he's helping Edward out. Now, this is in some ways worse than simply killing the father, because the father ends up being kind of a bad guy. But in another way, it's less bad because we're not actually killing him, right? And we have an option for him to be redeemed at the end. So he can make a moral choice to support the true king at the end of the story. So that could provide a little bit of resolution to that, like, tiny little subplot. So that's what I think I'm going to go with, because I just don't... It would just be a little bit too brutal to come home and have Edward have killed her entire family for, like, succoring the prince. Like, it's not something that Edward wouldn't do, and it would definitely, like, pump up the evilness of the king. But for a kid's story, it feels too brutal. So we're going to soften it a little bit with this. Now we need a name for her father. For Victoria's father. Sir Stalwell was the king's retainer. We're gonna meet him along the way here. Yeah. We can name her father. I almost want to give her father like a Danish name, like Eric. And so I think I'm going to do that. Lord Eric. I'm going to call him Eric. Erickson. Yeah. Just call him Lord Eric. It works. Hope things are going well for you. Thanks, Jared. Star Wars definitely had dark moments, especially seeing Luke's aunt and uncle charred skeletons outside their home. Yeah, that was a really dark moment for like a kid's movie. And that's the kind of funny thing about George Lucas is like, yeah, it's like kids' movies. I'm like when Anakin gets all his limbs chopped off and gets his face lit on fire and it melts at a volcano. Pretty dark, right? Have all the bad guys be E's and all the good guys be A's. Let's rename Bartholomew something with an E. Anyway, that's our little transition we're going to write today. Then they're going to go to the mountains, right? So that's what they're going to do. What's her sister's name? Is Charity, right? Yeah. No, Manfred. We already named him. It's Manfred. Manfred's a good name. We already named him. Manfred. Lord Manfred. All right. That's good. So yeah, we have to get past the guard at the river gate. do a little we need more music, don't we? Kids and young people are different things. Also, kids things today have to be all colorful and bubbly for some reason. I don't think so. I see a lot of dark kid stuff today. But it's really just about like how much, like how dark you want to make it. You can have some deaths for kids, but like, you know, if she got to the castle and it had been all lit on fire, and you had that scene from like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, or you had like dead bodies hanging from gibbets and stuff, it would be like, that's too far out. Really, in Star Wars, seeing the skeletons is a bit much, but I kind of understand where George Lucas did it, because you had to really clarify they are dead. Like, we are seeing their dead bodies. Right? There's no reason to stay here. All right. What am I looking for here? Oh, yes, let's pull up some more music. Since we're done with that song. All right. Okay. Here we go. No, we're in the employ. a sip roll out. Just one. Not a little. It's a little bit large. What's up, John? Everything's we're hanging in there. Rebuilding parts of the house after a big storm, like destroyed a bunch of walls. It was just bad luck because we had the roof off. We were building an addition to the house, a covered patio. So we're still working on that. I have to replace a bunch of the floors. It sucks. Have a sick cat. Probably gotta say goodbye to that cat in the near future. Cat went missing. We still don't know where he was. He came out of wherever he was hiding earlier. We're like, I can't believe this cat got out. This cat never leaves. And he comes out. He's deaf too, so you can't call for him. Can't be like, Simba, where are you? He just walked out randomly and started meowing. Like, hey, what are you guys doing standing around? Somebody needs to pet me. Okay. How did you hide? Yeah, it's all right. It's not that rough. The times are really not that rough. There are very easy times compared to what other people go through. It's just like slight annoyances, you know. Like I'm sleeping in my daughter's bedroom. Like we drug our mattress and threw it in my daughter's bedroom because we can't sleep in my bedroom because it got destroyed. So that's a pain. But the new patio turned out really nice. And once we kind of wrangle everything with the insurance company, basically we're going to end up with a bathroom remodel that we didn't pay for. Once everything's worked out. So, you know, it's all good. Like, it'll all work out. So, it's all good. I wanted to have a joke about how Alfred can't pass as a peasant. Yeah, they may need to like put their like gambesons and stuff back on. No worries about interrupting. The whole point is to interact with people. Yeah. I might need a little thing.
Hustling, bustling.
sorry to bring this up, but have you heard anything about Yasuke in Assassin's Creed? It's one of those political corporate decisions that people still treat it as an innocent artistic decision. And I've heard just like they're going to have a black samurai in Japan. It's just, it's also tiresome. And why would you buy, I don't know who buys Assassin's Creed games now. I mean, someone must buy them or they wouldn't make them, presumably, right? But I mean, I haven't played one in probably 10 years. And every time I see one, I'm like, what does this have to do with that series from 2007? You know, what does this have to do with it? I don't know. Yeah, people are willing to rewrite history for lots of things. I mean, Assassin's Creed is no stranger to rewriting history for their own little things. So, but why set something in Japan for, you know, presumably to have some like cultural diversity to then not have Japanese characters? It's a little weird. It's always been a weird thing. It's like, even like, you read a book like Shogun. Like I said, when I wrote Muramasa, I mean, I should weigh in on this because I write samurai fiction, right? Or I did. When I wrote Muramasa, there's no white people. There's 0 white people in this book. There's no Europeans. There's no one in this book is not Japanese. There's no non-Japanese people in that book. And that was because, like, even with Shogun, it's a fish out of water story with an Englishman becoming like an English samurai in a foreign culture. And that works, and it's good. No problems with it, I guess. But I feel like I see that trope a lot. And after I wrote that book, people were reading it like after Neo came out. They're reading the samurai book. And it's like, oh, it's cool that it's just all Japanese people. I'm like, yeah. What's the point of setting something in Japan if you don't have Japanese people in it? It's so weird. But it's only the Japanese that they do it to. You notice? I think it's because they're really racist against Japanese people. They used to be really, really just kind of out with it like years ago. You would have guys in the games industry like Phil Fish say that the Japanese can't make games, right? That Japanese games suck. That the Japanese are bad. Like, there's a anti-Japanese racist sentiment from Western woke game developers. I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because they have a functional society that's like one ethnicity. There's actually more than one Japanese ethnicity. We don't need to get into that, but, you know. To them, it's one ethnicity. It's like Japan is full of just Japanese people. It's very clean, very safe. People live good middle-class lives there. They like each other. They get along. Low crime. Like, all the things that are bad aren't there. And maybe there's just a resentment of like, oh yeah, if you have, or like Singapore, it's like if you have one race and creed, the society is really functional of smart people. Yeah, Phil Fish. Yeah, Phil Fish wrote, I mean, he did Fez, which was a good game, and then he had like an emotional breakdown and canceled Fez 2 and quit the games industry, except he did do a VR game a while back. I think he's a talented guy, but the internet, like, this is a thing about talented people, and I'm kind of aware of this with myself, is that the internet, like, talented people need to be on their own doing creative things. And social media is not that. Like, I struggle with this, and I often think about just deleting everything. Like, deleting YouTube, deleting Twitter, deleting everything. Because I get tired of the inputs, and I get tired of feeling obligated to interact with people all the time. On one level, I like it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't keep doing it. But when you're trying to be creative, it's often really too much, right? People, the back and forth, especially on Twitter, if you have people dunking on you on Twitter, it could feel like everyone around you hates you, which isn't true, right? But we're not wired that way. We're wired to be little tribal creatures that live with our little families. And so if your family hates you, it can mean your death. But if people on Twitter hate you, Twitter's not real, but it can feel real. So like for people with Phil Fish, it's like he's a guy who shouldn't be on the internet. He should just be making games and That's it. He should just be making games and not interact with other people. I remember the Super Meat Boy devs basically came to that conclusion. They're like, social media has to be one way only. We can announce things on social media, but we cannot have any input coming in, or it'll drive us crazy. We won't be able to work, and we'll just go crazy, you know? And I completely understand that perspective, because I could feel it. I could feel elements of it in what I'm doing, you know? Yeah, Twitter's like a mosh pit. But I really do think Western devs are really racist against Japanese people. They really hate the Japanese, and they hate Japanese culture, and hate everything. This is why pedophiles will come out and say anime is for pedophiles, and then they're projecting, right? They're like, things can't be cute and people can't just like cute things, right? You know, everything needs to be, for me, I don't know. They hate the Japanese people. So why not have a Japanese protagonist? Well, the answer is because he'd be Japanese. Like diversity between games. Like you can have a game set in China. It's all Chinese people. You have a game set in Africa. It's all African people. You have a game set in Japan. We have to have a black character. They treat Japan exactly like they treat Europe at this point. Which is like, if you set something in medieval Europe, you have to have black characters now, even though there were never, like, there were so few Africans. You know, there were Africans in the sense that, like, you always have foreigners sometimes showing up to trade and stuff, but they're not like a big part of society. So, like, why put them in there? You know? It's weird. But yeah, I think they actually hate Japanese people. It's why they hate, it's why people have been wanting to have fewer Japanese games. Every time a Japanese game comes out, they've been doing this for decades, right? I talked about this with a Square Enix game called Last Remnant, which is a really cool game. Very unique battle system, interesting story, great aesthetics. Not a perfect game, but to the extent the Western games press would interact with it, they wanted to shit on it and say it was for Japanese people. That's actually what the review said. Maybe only I think this is only for Japanese people to like. It's like, I guess you don't ever play like RPGs or anything, but that was an acceptable thing to say back in like 2010. It was like, it's for Japanese weirdos with no life. It's racist stuff. But meanwhile, all the Japanese games are good, right? It's like, for me, the like first layer of whether I would play a game is like, if it's Japanese, it gets an automatic bump. Japanese games are on average better than Western games across the board. So, and that's coming after like the Western games renaissance of 2007, where you got Mass Effect. You got a bunch of really good Western games, Call of Duty, Mass Effect. You got stuff like Oblivion. You got a bunch of great Western games came out around 2007. Assassin's Creed. But did they capitalize? No, they just turned all of that into like recycled mud genre, yearly release, give me your money garbage, whereas the Japanese actually try to make good games. So that's why Mario games are always better. It's why Square Enix games are always better. It's why everything's always better from Japan, you know? And they'll quickly try to adjust and pretend like they're not being racist when it's like Nier Automata is just like a cum bucket Western or Japanese pedophile game, and then it's like it's a really good game, and it's like, oh, we always liked it. It's cool that they had female characters that people like to play. You just rewrite your own history because you're so fucking dishonest. Like, the games media is the most dishonest group of journalists I can think of. And that's a subset of journalists, which are probably the most dishonest category of people that I could possibly think of, are like mainstream journalists. Sorry to get on that rant, but it's good to talk about. Because yes, I do actually write samurai fiction. This is a real book about Japanese people. Like, people always say it's historically accurate. I wasn't trying to be historically accurate. But it's more accurate than what the West does because they actively hate Japan. And they hate Japanese people, and they hate Japanese culture. I don't know why, but they do. I like I like other cultures. This is real conservatism, by the way, guys, is liking your culture and also liking other cultures and liking that other cultures are those cultures. Like, I can like Japanese culture and Chinese culture and Indian culture and whatever else. I can even appreciate Aboriginal culture and their art and things like that because they're different and unique and they're them and it's product of the people. Whereas the neoliberal leftist kind of thing is about turning everything into a homogenized goop. They talk about diversity. What they mean by diversity is no white people. And what they do is they want to take people of all races and throw them into a classroom together and turn them into one homogenized tabula rasa goop of a person that will just do whatever the state wants it to do. That's the statist fantasy. And I just don't believe that. I think it's cool that other countries are different. And I like their cultures for what they are. And I want to appreciate their cultures as they are, not level them into a modernist goop. And so, like, yeah, emphasizing a random black character in Assassin's Creed is probably the most racist thing they could have possibly done. But they can't recognize it as racist because to them, their entire worldview is like a harmonious moralist worldview. Is that Japanese people are successful now, therefore if we do a historical representation of them, it should be bad, and also we need to put black people in it. Same thing with Europeans. We can't portray Renaissance European culture as good. It has to be bad. It has to be somehow evil. It's nonstop. Yeah. I played the first few games, I loved them, but now they're just the same as the rest of Western trash. Yep, it's just mud genre garbage. They found the one black guy in Japanese history and made a game about him. Yeah. Hail and good evening. What's up, John? They hate manga and animes. Hate that manga and anime is extremely popular with everyone now, and it makes them mad that the girls act like girls and are cute and good looking, and people like them, you know, and they're feminine. Or they're silly, or they're funny. Like Japanese shows are funnier. They can actually tell jokes. You know? Twitter's like a mosh pit, yeah. Do you think a lot of the Japanese hate is jealousy of success? I mean, jealousy might be part of it. It's hard for me to know what they're feeling about the Japanese other than I think they resent them for saving the games industry and dominating it for so long. They might resent the fact that Japanese society is homogenous and therefore peaceful. And like it's hard to ignore that. That diversity plus proximity equals war. I think Phil kind of brought it on himself with the Japanese games suck stuff. That wasn't what brought him down. It was really like other things, though, if I remember right. Yeah, games journalists and media folks like Adam Sessler and the anti-Japanese bias is still crazy. Yeah, the Japanese are white adjacent. Basically, anyone who's successful is white. And like, quote, model minorities like Asians come over here, and then they're like, why don't people like Chinese people? It's like, people do. White people like you fine. Why don't other people like you? It's just they don't like that you're successful and that you are well-ordered and things like that, and you have good families. They don't like that. So you get lumped into being white. You're basically ceremonially white because you've found success in a capitalist system. The new Dutch CEO of PlayStation, Herman Hulst, was a major strong advocate for closing down Sony's Japan studio. Japan studio made amazing games. I can't believe they closed it down. Games and comics journalists are by far the worst and most corrupt and the most progressive left wing. Yeah. Worst imaginable. Yeah. Alright, let's get back to writing. Rant over. think the Japanese treat games as their own individual media, while Western devs and Western game journalists desperately try to make movies to be taken seriously. They hate that Japan doesn't. Well, I mean, who am I thinking of? Who did Metal Gear Solid? He kind of wants to make movies.
Right.
Oh, Hideo Kojima. Yeah. He's a Hollywood Westaboo, and that's why Jeff Cayley parades him around. Music stopped suddenly. Are you still watching? Yes. They still hate eccentric bits of his work like fan service stuff. Metal Gear Solid 5, so I think him partnering with Hollywood studios and directors will kill any unique qualities of his games. Yeah. That's true. I'm not, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Hideo Kojima games. They're okay. I liked the Metal Gear Solid games back in the day. I think he worked at Konami and became kind of a pariah there. Death Stranding was mediocre, IMO. He needs a team to push fun gameplay ideas. Yeah. Well, games should be about gameplay, in my opinion. You know? I'm gonna have a little snack while I think about this next little bit here. How much have we written? Oh, we need a page break here. About a few more pages here. I'm gonna get my drink is actually empty, so I'm gonna get a little bit more soda. I'll be right back. There we go. Now we're back. fire the world. Alright, there we go. I think it's the Half Moon Hills. I may change this later once I look at my maps. Too long to sentence. Lutz says big ups. I have a song called Lutz. Let's pull it up. We'll pull it up real quick. There it is. Listen to it.
Day trading attention means that you do not.
First, we'll listen to an ad.
I have no romance to social, to Google, to Facebook, to TikTok.
There we go. I haven't listened to this one in a while. I recorded it a long time ago. Alright.
The other guy's name. Army. Nigel. I don't know if I want to have Nigel here or not.
No, I'm not gonna have. No, we'll have Nigel. We'll have Nigel. We just hit 2 hours. We're not quite at 2 hours. Let's see, my software says 2 hours, but it says 157 over here. So I wonder which one is the correct one. All right. Okay. Chapter 8. All right, here we go. Been hearing rain a lot. Hearing the rain track a lot. I want to get different tracks here. Like the auto cue doesn't always get like the best tracks. I think it's good tracks though. All right, so that's it. How much did we write in this little 2 hour and 11-minute section? 3,400 words. Okay, guys. So people who are like, you can't write a book in a month. I remember that when I wrote 3 books in a month. People are like, it's impossible. I'm like, you just have to sit down and write. You watch me just sit down and write 3,500 words. You know? So yes, you can in fact write books quickly and have them be good. You just have to sit down and write. If you are a slow writer, that's okay. Just be consistent with it. Just be consistent with it, and eventually the book will get done. You don't have to write quickly, but sometimes some people can write quickly. People who are very experienced and know what they're writing can write the story quickly, and that doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, it's good. So speed and quality, those aren't necessarily aligned. It's about how well you know how to execute the story that you have in your mind. And so that's it. So yeah, we wrote 3,500 words today. That's a good sizable amount. I tell most beginners, like, most NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month stuff is like 50,000 words, which breaks down to like 1,600 words a day or something, 1,800 words a day. Very doable. I just did 3,400. So, if you have 2 hours a day to do this and you get experienced, right? If I just extrapolate that, or if I just say it's, and I still had time to stop and rant at the camera for like 15 minutes. So and get a snack and get like get a little lemonade here. Little bit of blueberry lemonade. Yeah, I wrote in November of 2017. I wrote all 3 Neil Ash books and edited them. And I only waited until the new year to publish them because I had to take time to do the covers. They were done in a month though. Actually a little bit more, like a month and like 5 days. So you can totally do it. You just have to do it every day. And so yeah, you stick to it and you do it every day and then it's done. But if you write just 1,000 words a day, you have to think that 150 days isn't even half a year. So you can write 2 of those big books a year. At least draft them. It takes longer to edit them. So yeah, you can write a lot of words if you know what you're doing. This is a pretty easy story for me to execute so far because I know exactly what I'm doing with it. And it's kind of by the books. It's kind of by the numbers, I guess. I wouldn't say I'm phoning it in. There's going to be a lot more original stuff as we go, right? But we're using a lot of classic storytelling techniques with this. We're not having to do a lot of original stuff. Whereas I wrote it a little bit slower with King Leper, which you can get if you're one of my patrons, and I'll just link all that stuff for anyone that's watching. Like, if you're a member on Patreon, you can actually get the book, the first book of the King Leper area. There's 3 books, so I'm going to release them probably as a single volume because it's just easier that way. That one was a little bit slower writing because I had to write it in several different sessions, interrupted by other things where I couldn't write very much and was doing other projects, get interrupted, start working on something else, and have to do that. But also it was a more technically challenging book because there's a blind character. So writing a blind character actually requires a little bit more thought than just slamming out some regular kind of by the numbers characters. A blind character, the way that you describe her reality is going to be quite different than somebody who has sight, as well as a lot of different things. There's a lot more in that book than a regular book, so it took a longer to write it, and then I had to do a lot of editing to try to clean things up. The book's done now, and it's actually been done, but I'm taking my time to publish it because I just I want to really clean it up, make sure it's good. It's probably ready to go now with there's a couple little spots I need to look at and fix that aren't consistent with my last editing read through, so I'll get back to that. Anyway, yeah, you can write quickly. So we just did 3,400 words. Like if I did this stream every day for 2 hours, exactly the same. Like this book could be done in a couple weeks, right? The book would be entirely done. The book so far is 17,000 words, right? It'll probably get around 60 to 70,000 words when we're done. Maybe longer. We'll see. You know, if I feel like the adventures are really fun to have and we can keep having those adventures, I might just put a bunch of them in there and make it a longer book. But we'll see. I don't think it's going to be a terribly, terribly long book. But anyway, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for watching me today. And hopefully this wasn't too boring. People seem to like these little streams. And that's cool. So something different. I thought like no one would actually like this. It's way too boring, right? Like it's just too boring a concept. But you know, I had 12 people watch, so that's cool. 12 people watch the boring process. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. You can also, what's the other one? It's all the stuff's in the description. You know, you can always check the description box. You can buy the paperback for the last book I wrote. The ebook is not available because Amazon is stupid, but whatever. Eventually the ebook will be available, or you can just read it as part of one of the other sites, and that'll work. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it makes me wish the writing sessions. I never really had writing sessions really with friends other than like one person. So, but you know, it's fun to come up with ideas and things. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day, and leave me your thoughts down below too. This will be up. This chapter will be up on all of the stuff to read if you guys want to read it. So if you're a member of one of my Patreon kind of things, either Patreon or Ko-Fi, or it'll be on Substack too for paying members of Substack. You can read this transcript on it. Okay, so have a great one, and I'll see you all next time.